I'm going to try to do homeschooling the right way. So I take the kids downstairs. It's like I put on my Army Sergeant drill hat and I blew this whistle and I read them these directions and I say, this is what you will do today.
I think we listen to the lie, like kind of what's kind of can lead to a boring homeschool is when we're just following that checklist and just getting things done, and we keep it all about that. And so we're afraid of gaps and we're afraid of falling behind. But what are some ways to speak into that parent who is afraid that being creative and taking field trips, because that means a day without getting things done. So how would you speak into that just to kind of encourage a mom?
So I'm going to go back because this is what we do when we talk, Kristi. I'm going to go back and give you the background of why I think this. And it was because the first year we homeschooled, there was this crazy law that said that I had to use a curriculum that a public or private school in my district was using. I wasn't free to choose. But there was a Christian school and there was a curriculum that I could use. So unsuited for my son Ty. It was unbelievable. Doesn't mean it was bad. It just was not right for him. But I was stuck. And every morning I would read something like this in the teacher's manual. Now, this is just kindergarten or grade 1. And it's have your kids sit with your feet on their desk and their feet on the floor and their hands on the desk and look you in the eye and raise your hand. You know, there was no curriculum for homeschoolers then. It's all classroom curriculum. And so we never had a day like that. Ty was not that type of kid who was going to sit there and do that. So I just remember I had been homeschooling. I didn't know anybody in the world who was homeschooling when we started. So we'd been homeschooling for about 6 months. And so now it's like February or March. And I wake up one day and I tell the Lord, okay, I'm obviously an abysmal failure at this. And so I'm going to try to do homeschooling the right way. So I take the kids downstairs. It's like I put on my Army Sergeant drill hat and I blew this whistle and I read them these directions and I say, this is what you will do today. And you are going to be still and Ty. You're going to raise your hand when you have something to say. You're not going to interrupt me. You're not going to color while I'm talking. You're not going to play with your cards. And for heaven's sakes, you're not going to bounce that ball that's always going over here. And so, this just shows I just didn't know. And so it was so miserable. Now, John, my 4-year-old, just had this amazing gift of concentration, even at 4. But Ty was upset. I mean, Ty never said 2 words. Ty talked all day long and we enjoyed being together. Not engaged at all. John, the 4-year-old, was a mess because his brother was a mess. He just wanted everybody to be happy. And so I said, okay, Lord, if this is homeschooling, I can't do it and I need to quit. And I know there are people out there that feel that way. And so about a week or so later, I went to this little toy store to buy a birthday present for the kids. And they had the Brio train set, where they can play because we couldn't afford one. And I started reading this book. They had this great book nook called Growing Up Learning. And he said, and for most of your audience, this is old news, but for me, this was Independence Day. He said, your kids learn in one of 3 ways: auditory, kinesthetic, and visual. They learn by seeing, hearing, and talking, or moving and doing. And he said, woe to the auditory kinesthetic kid who learns by talking and moving, because those are unacceptable activities in a classroom. Now, this is not a homeschool person at all. He said, if you can get them out of school, they make the biggest, usually the biggest successes in life. And then he just talked about the class. He talked about this graduate student. And he said this, he said, she spent all of her time when she had to be still and focused in a classroom, she said it took all of her energy because she was auditory kinesthetic. And if she could move and talk, she could learn. But if she had to be still, all of her focus was going into being still and quiet, and she couldn't learn anything. Wow. And I'm having these ding, 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 ding moments and the sirens going off. And I'm thinking, Lord, You made Ty, you made him an auditory kinesthetic learner. You made him to learn by moving and talking. And that explains why he couldn't say 2 words to me the day I made him sit still and quiet. And so really, I call that Independence Day in our homeschool, because Ty was free to be who God made him to be, not who I made him to be. But I had felt so much guilt for that because I felt like it was my fault. Now, I'm not saying a child never needs to sit still and be quiet. So hear me, I'm not saying that. But that is not how Ty learned on a daily basis. And that was the beauty of homeschooling for him.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.